Can the Phillies just get their season started now? I don't know about you, but I'm ready. They look red hot. Trending in the AM, it starts in 30 seconds.
Holding, gets around in front.
And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. But do me that favor. If you want to get interactive with the show, head over to the DSM Media YouTube page. Hit the like button, the subscribe button, turn notifications on. Best place to drop your comments, thoughts, questions as we talk Phillies, maybe a little Sixers, but we're going to talk a lot with our special guest today. Yes, as Jason is chiming in the comments. Kylee. We've got Kylee Sullenberger. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
From the Bell Smashers podcast, one of the fastest rising and growing podcasts there are out there. Kylee, good morning. How you doing today?
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad to have a new guest on. I've been following you guys. I mean, I believe the Bell Smashers pod's only been around for what, like 12 or 14 episodes so far?
14 now. 14
episodes. You guys have already quickly grown to a crazy pace. You've had some amazing guests on your show. And something that really sticks out to what you guys do, you bring such a positive vibe to there's a lot of us that do this content creation. Lots. We know that. But you know, you guys are keeping it so positive, and that's what draws me in, because that's what I try to do here, is have a very positive outlook on Philadelphia sports on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's sometimes it is tough, you know, with losses, but there's definitely some positive to go around, and there's too much negative, man. Like,
yeah, there is so much negative. I mean, it was funny that you bring that up, because you know, obviously there was the football news a couple days ago was when Carson Wentz got released again by Washington. And I put out a post, and I expected it to be like this total, like, just bombardment of negative energy towards me, because, you know, I kind of just said, yeah, look, you know, everyone's going to want to jump all over this guy and bash him and call him this and a bust and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, guys, we don't win a Super Bowl in 2017 if we don't have Carson Wentz on our team. So let's save the negative energy. Let's push it aside, and let's just, you know, let him go about his business the way it goes. And I was so surprised because normally the negative energy will roll in on a post like that. It didn't happen that one time, but just simple things like that, keeping the vibes positive, you know, it just makes your daily life so much better.
it really does. And it helps when you're like trying to when you're watching a game and something happens and you're just like, that really sucks, but then there's always something that happens after that's good. So it's like, I'd rather, for the sake of being able to continue watching the game, it's easier to focus on the positives of it, because they represent our city.
You could talk about a bad game or a loss and still have a positive, you know, spin on it. You know, we talked. I was talking Sixers the other day. You know, tough loss to Miami, and it's like you could still find ways to break down and discuss a negative outcome in a positive way, and that's what I think more sports creators, more content creators need to do. Focus on the positives, or at least put a positive spin on more things.
Yeah, exactly, and all of us on the podcast really try to do all that, because all these guys, they work their butts off every day, and we don't see all of that. We just see what goes on the field, the court, the ice, the whatever. That's all we see. So knowing how hard these guys work, you can only appreciate it.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And you guys, it's Jen, it's Haley over at Bell Smashers Pod. And let's just dive right into it. I mean, you guys have, in such a short period of time, you know, been able to grow your podcast pretty quickly. You guys had Darick and you know, Appel on your show already in a short period of time. first and foremost, before we get into those interviews specifically, just talk about how great it was to get those, those guests to come on in such short order.
Man, it was really cool. We got Appel on, and he's such a positive guy, and that's also like he really tries to do the same thing we do, positivity, and he had been through so much and just had gotten so much negative criticism around him, and so hearing how positive he is and how much he tries to go, how he goes about what he does, and we all just really appreciated that. And they're just like Jen said, Appel's the man. He's such a positive guy, and he's just so nice. And Darick Hall as well. Like, they're both just great guys. They were fun to talk to.
So once you get, I know I've had this. I mean, I've had some bigger names on this show in the past, and it's so hard to then because these are our Phillies. We're gonna 162 game season. You do your show. I do this every morning, and I literally react to every single Phillies game. It is so hard to be unbiased to these guys now that you've had them on. They have to become like your favorite Phillies now, don't they?
Dude, that's really Jen and I have literally talked about this all the time. It's when you have those guys on, you root for them a little extra, and every positive or good thing they do, it means a little more because you've talked to them, and so there's nothing like better than that. Seeing them do well.
So let's get into this Phillies team. All right, real quick, we got a question from Jason. Jason wants to know who your favorite Philly was growing up, and I'm going to make a really bad joke here. Kylee is still growing up, Jason. She is a baby compared to us, so she is still growing up. But growing up, who was your favorite Philly?
So Jim Thome was my first jersey.
Okay, all right.
But growing up, I was at the end of Jim Thome. So Ryan Howard was my guy. Utley, Rollins, Victorino, those are my guys.
You grew up at a perfect time to become a Phillies fan. You didn't have to struggle through the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s like Jason and I did, suffering nonstop through bad team. Like, I can name some names that I would say were my favorite Phillies growing up, and they're like, those guys shouldn't have been in Major League Baseball. But they were, because the Phillies were so bad. But anyway, let's get to this Phillies team. Obviously, lots of expectations after last year's surprise World Series run. And the vibes surrounding this team obviously almost have that entering 2008 vibe again. Lots of expectations, but also a lot of, realistic. These expectations are expected. It's not like we're just blind Phillies fans expecting a deep run. We know this team is really damn good, and this team can compete. And we're already seeing it in the first 3-4 games of spring training. These guys they've come to work. So before we get into individual specifics about the team, how do you feel about this team this year? Are you feeling that same positive vibe, but in a realistic way that, this team, I think they're good, and I think they really will meet those expectations?
110%. We talked to Hollow, and we were like, the team seems so together still, and we were like, what are the vibes? What's going on? And even Appel, they were all just like, it's a family. And it's no coincidence that when Trey Turner had his press conference, he said they look like family. And I mean, the clubhouse is just so together. And I think that they knew they could do it last year, and they were 2 games shy of winning it all. So I think that brings a lot of hunger. And JT finally tasted the postseason. Bryce got a taste of a long postseason. So these guys, they want it.
They do. And I think and again, I tried to have a conversation on the show with a few people and on social media about it a little bit in a positive way, but also, the negativity came out for it and all from some people was that, the first big question for me coming into the season, obviously on the field, the talent is there. Obviously they've upgraded so many positions, and we're going to get into some of them in a second, but it's Rob Thompson. And I was very critical of Rob Thompson last year. It took a long time for me to jump on the Rob Thompson bandwagon. And I said at the beginning of this, before camp started that, will Rob Thompson have to change the way he does things? I mean, he was that interim guy, caught lightning in a bottle. It wasn't hard to turn around what, Joe Girardi was doing so poorly. And this year now he's the main guy. It's his first time in the big chair officially. Can Rob Thompson just carry over exactly what he did last year? Does he have to change any of his ways of doing things? And can that voice, now going from the interim guy that everybody loved, the bench guy that got promoted, to he's our real boss now. So I'm not trying to say I am concerned. I'm just trying to say that I'm not sure if the same way of doing things last year can work exactly the same this year. That's
definitely a concern, because when Topper took over, the Phillies were 22-29. So really anything that they did was great. We went on, what was it, a 12-13 game win streak?
Yeah. It was something like 18 out of 19 games we won right off the bat, 22-2 or something like that. It was insane.
Yeah. But the reason I don't think I'm that concerned about it is because when Topper got that extension, that 2-year only extension, the players went ecstatic. I had never seen anything like that. Topper seems to be a very calm, cool, collected guy. Doesn't overreact and doesn't underreact. Just kind of lets it happen. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Stott really popped off once Topper came in. And so I think this full year with Topper is going to be a good one.
So you mentioned Bryson Stott, and I think that was one of the big things that worked last year that I'm concerned will it work this year is that as soon as Rob Thompson took over, someone like Bryson Stott went from, if he went 0 for 3 one day, Joe Girardi would bench him for 4 days. You know what I mean? There was no consistency. These guys weren't given the opportunity to get in a rhythm. And let's be honest, in May, June last year, the World Series were not expectations that were on our table, weren't things we were talking about. We were hoping to get back to 500 or maybe squeak into the playoffs. Yeah. But Rob Thompson came in and gave these guys confidence by, all right, you're going to play every day. If you go 0 for 4, 3 days in a row, your spot in the lineup is not changing. Can that work again this year? Bryson Stott's still a young player, using him as an example. What if he comes out of the gates again this year and struggles? Will Rob Thompson have the ability to get him right? Will he have the ability or will he have the managerial know-it-all to say, all right, you got to sit a couple days. This isn't a knock on you, but you got to do it. He might have to manage things slightly different over 162 games this year than 100 games last year.
Yeah, that's definitely something that can come into play. I've heard from several players that D Hall last week when he came on our podcast, he said the team, the organization from top to bottom, not just the Phillies themselves, but with the Pigs, the Flightons, the Threshers, all of them, they're all connected. They're all in a line. Everybody knows what's going on. Now it's under Topper and the organization, the players have said that going from the Phillies to the Pigs didn't feel like a demotion. It felt like going from, just going down to work on a couple of things. And I think Alvarado said it too. And he went from this dude who didn't have any control really to one of our big pieces in the bullpen. So I think in regards to Stott, if he does have a slow start, it's going to come down to with playing Sosa a couple times because we have Sosa. But I think
it's more about making those tough decisions with expectation, because there are a lot more expectations this year than there were last year. Last year he could get by. Well, you know what? Stott's 0 for 10. Don't matter. I mean, what's the harm going to do by just letting him ride it out? Can he make that tough decision when, look, a lot of people expect 90, 95 wins, another playoff trip, maybe another trip to the World Series. There's a difference in managing when those expectations are different.
Yeah, it's very different. But I hope he kind of keeps the same thing because playing the young guys gives everybody else energy. So hopefully with I mean, I don't even think Stott's going to have that slow of a start anyway, but if he does, I think Topper will do the right thing. I trust Topper and the organization until they can show me that they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I was just using Stott as an example.
Right.
I don't think I think I actually, from what I saw growth wise last year, and obviously I wasn't, sure we were signing Trey Turner, but before Trey Turner, I was like, in this spring, Bryson Stott could probably fight for a leadoff spot on this team. Like, that's the potential I see in Bryson Stott. I see
Absolutely.
leadoff potential in that kid. I was just using that as an example.
No, I know.
the other name you mentioned, and it's a curious name in my opinion, and I know you're his biggest fan now, is Darick Hall. He's going to have potential to have a role on this team with Bryce Harper out. I don't know what your thoughts are. I think Bryce Harper, we don't see him in the Phillies lineup again until about July 1st, maybe even a little later than that. So Darick Hall has that opportunity to step in as that left-handed DH power hitter. He kind of came out of nowhere last year. He wasn't really one of the, I wouldn't even say he wasn't even a top 10 or 12 prospect in our system. Are you confident enough that he could step into a regular role this year? Take your fan club glasses off, put your I'm a Phillies fan and I want to see this team win. Is he good enough to play semi-regularly? Because I won't say every day, but also I don't want to say in a straight platoon. I want to say 3 out of 4, 3 out of 5 games. Is he good enough, and is he on track to be able to hold the fort down for that amount of time?
I think in regards to Harper being out, you're just kind of putting people that can produce at least for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think Hall is going to even – I know Hall's going to probably make the roster, but I don't think he's going to be one of the main guys just yet. It'd be nice to see because, I love Hall, but –
I'm glad you're trying to answer this question very, very politically correct and unbiased here. I appreciate that.
But I think they're just going to do a platoon of guys. I think he's one of the main guys that'll be there. But in terms of, I think he can, but I don't think he's going to be, I think they're just going to do a platoon instead of a main guy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think you'll see, even unless one guy specifically gets super, super hot. And I mean, like, tears the cover off the ball nonstop. You're not going to see the same guy in there. And I really feel that, they've thrown Sosa out in the outfield a little bit in training camp. I need to see personally a little Nick Castellanos in the DH, because I said all last year, him playing right field every single day after Harper got hurt was probably a big part of his downward struggles at the plate. And if you can get him in the lineup 7 days a week, but only have him in the field 3 or 4 of those 7 days, put him in the DH, which is what you brought him here to be before Harper's arm injury. I think that, we'll get into Castellanos more specifically, but that positive regression that I keep talking about, that can happen if you could give him the rest in the field more regularly. So then that gives you Sosa, moving around the field. That gives, Rhys Hoskins a day off at first base. It gives Alec Bohm a day off at third base. By balancing all those guys as the DH, unfortunately, that also means that less Darick Hall in the lineup, probably, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think Sosa will just – because Trey Turner wants to play all 162 if he can.
Yeah.
Like, that's no debate. So I think Sosa will just be replacing Stott or Bohm. But I think we don't even have another first baseman. So that's why Hall might even be the guy to come up. I don't know. With Castellanos specifically, I would love to see him more in the DH, because I really do agree, and I think the outfield is what kind of contributed to a lot of the underwhelming season. But he was also hurt. So mixing those two things is just grounds for chaos.
Yeah. Nick Castellanos is such a curious case to me, because obviously 2021, before he came to Philly, it was probably his best year as a pro. And that's people are expecting that, but that's not who Nick Castellanos is. Nick Castellanos is not a guy that's going to put up 35 home runs, 120 RBIs, hit 3. That's not who he is. Nick Castellanos, and I'm sure you watched, most of these preseason games or spring training games so far. His home run the other day, to me, was such. I know it was the second game, or was it the first game? First or second game of spring training, but I saw so much there.
Yeah.
That ball does not go out at Citizen Bank Park. Maybe in August, but not. I mean, the ball. I don't know if you've ever been to Clearwater. The ball
not yet.
The ball flies. I mean, it just. I might be able to hit a home run at that stadium. The ball just travels down there. I would never hit a home run there. But he was able to take an inside pitch, hit it to what would have been a gapping, right center double. And that is what we need to see. Him taking the pitch where it goes. He's a guy that when he's peaking, he's hitting 40 doubles, 45 doubles. I think I put out a tweet. If he can have 70 extra base hits, 20, 25 home runs, 40, 45 doubles, a couple triples, because actually before last year, he averaged 5 triples a season. So you put all that together, and that's a great season. And I really think that's what we need to expect. Not the 35 home runs, but the gap power that's driving in runs regularly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he looks more comfortable too. It's nice to see him taking pitches. Jen did see, she was at the game. Very jealous. She also saw Trey Turner's debut, I guess, as a Philly. Very jealous of that. But yeah, we all think Hussey's gonna bounce back, and I think seeing him more in the DH role is gonna be great. And it was really nice to see him get a couple walks, take some pitches, and really just take a breather. He looks more comfortable. A full spring training with the Phillies, a full off season, everything related to our organization. So I think he's gonna have a great year, and it was really nice to see that home run.
Yeah, I really, and then yesterday's game, he had a RBI single, or maybe it was a 2-run single. Where it was a low and away pitch, but he was able to stay on top of the ball, fight it into the knuckle it out into the outfield there. There's a lot of good in a very short period of time that I've already seen from Nick Castellanos. What's up, my man, Scotty? Good morning. We're talking Phillies. We might get to Sixers if we have enough time here, but good morning, my man. So Trey Turner, you mentioned him, and you're saying Jen was there for his first game. Again, and Jen, if you're down there, that's fantastic. Make sure you go to all the great spots on Clearwater Beach, man. If I could hit the lottery, I will be moving down to Clearwater Beach in 30 seconds. It is the greatest area in the world.
I'm going in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's awesome. That is awesome. I will give you every restaurant to go to and every famous place to hit, but make sure when you go to a game, you go early. And you go and stop at Lenny's for breakfast right by the stadium. There is nothing better than an old school 80s diner that, has literally not been updated once in 40 years. And
that sounds like my kind of place. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. It's fantastic. You sometimes will even see players in there before the game having breakfast. Ooh. So, yeah, I know. And you'll have your phone out. You'll be ready. You'll be ready to go.
100%.
Absolutely. So anyway, Trey Turner in his first game. Single, stolen base, run scored. Next at bat, single, drives in a run. I don't want to take anything away from Kyle Schwarber. He did an admirable job as a leadoff hitter last year.
Absolutely.
But we have not had this type of a leadoff hitter in – I was trying to think the other day. Jimmy Rollins wasn't even a prototypical leadoff hitter. Like, I can't think of the last time we had a prototypical leadoff hitter like this in our lineup. And just the other day, I know it was the first game, but Trey Turner just brings something different to this lineup that we have missed for forever, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. With spring training, what I look for, I don't look at the bad things that happen. Not even just me trying to stay positive and look at the glass half full. I think of it as like it's just spring training. These guys are just getting started, and we had the longest season of any Major League Baseball team. And that comes with the shortest offseason. And none of our players had to deal with that for years, especially, Nola and Hoskins. They had never even seen the postseason. So going from no postseason to a World Series Game 6 is a lot. And so I just try for my sanity to ignore the bad things. And when any player does something good, I always overreact because it's like with Trey Turner, that dude has just started from the jump. It's been exactly what we were looking for. And so his first hit in his first at bat and then stealing a base right away, like prototypical, as you said, leadoff hitter. It's nice. And I don't think Schwarber should be leading off anyway. I know he hit like the most leadoff home runs of any player, I'm pretty sure. But he pretty much I'd rather have him in the 4 spot or the 5, just try to get some home runs. And with the shift being gone, he could hit some more singles. Like, but I would rather.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. I mean, everybody talked about Kyle Schwarber. Well, he provides a spark when he hits those leadoff home runs and stuff. But the spark of a single, a stolen base, and then Schwarber driving you in with a 2-run home run provides as much of a spark, if not more of a spark. So,
exactly.
Having Trey Turner as a leadoff hitter, and no offense to Bryson Stott, but I mean, Trey Turner is probably one of, if not the best shortstop in baseball, as well defensively. You could slide Stott over to second, which will improve second base because, again, no disrespect to Gene Segura, love Gene Segura, but, you went and you just took Stott and Segura and turned it into Turner and Stott. That's a massive upgrade right there, not at one position, but at 2 positions. So I think Jason's saying Trey Turner is a top 5 player in baseball, period. I mean, we're going to get to see. I mean, again, I didn't watch a lot of Trey Turner last year. I just know what I see in the box scores, and we're going to see firsthand whether he's a top 5 player in baseball. It's crazy to say that Bryce Harper might not be the best Philly anymore. It might be Trey Turner.
I wouldn't go that far just yet. I love it though. I love it. And there's definitely a chance for that. But with losing Segura, I think with putting Stott at second, Stott was when Segura was out with an injury, Stott had to go to second, and that dude was a vacuum at second. And so I think his willingness to, when he was asked where he wants to play, he said big leagues. So I think his willingness to move to second and how excited he was for Trey Turner to come. I mean, I think it's definitely, it's easily an upgrade. I mean, Stott's going to be our guy for a while. And as much as we love Segura, I think this was the move to make.
No, I agree 100%. And I love you quoting him there. I just want to play big league baseball. There's not much better than a quote just like that.
It's my favorite quote.
Yeah, mature beyond his years.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the pitching side of things. And you hit on it already. Longest season of everybody. Zach Wheeler last year had some arm fatigue last year. Aaron Nola's never pitched that many innings, across the board. Obviously, you've got the Andrew Painter, ready in the wings, and he's going tomorrow, I believe. I think
today.
It's Thursday. Is he today? Okay, today. He's on the game that's not televised. Tomorrow's televised, today's not televised. That's
MLB TV is showing them for free.
Oh, are they?
So it's the away broadcast, unfortunately, but
Gotcha. So Andrew Painter, a really tired pitching staff, possibly. So first and foremost, we'll just jump right in. Should Andrew Painter start the season with the big league club?
I think it completely depends on his spring training. Because you don't want to rush it. We have our pitchers. That being said, if he doesn't make the roster immediately, he's going to get called up this year. There's no doubt about it. This dude he's 19, and what he's done, he's incredible. And I'm excited to see it. And I think I'd like to see him on the big league roster to start out, because this year is a great year to do it. He has Nola, Wheeler, Taijuan Walker,
Ranger.
Yeah, I was just going to say Ranger.
I would have named Ranger Suarez before Taijuan Walker. He's a legend.
Yeah, I love
Saving
Ranger.
games in a World Series, winning games. I mean, come on now. Nobody put more effort in last year than Ranger Suarez.
Yeah, seriously. Ranger's my guy. And I was happy to see how he improved from bullpen to starter. And I think it's going to be another year of Ranger in the rotation. And I think with Painter, Topper said he might have a 6-man rotation.
Okay.
So that would lead that would lead you to believe that Andrew Painter realistically could be brought up to start the season or in sometime in the season. So I'd like to see him start out in the big leagues because we have all these guys that can.
And your team's calling me out for calling you out for forgetting Ranger's name. I was just joking. I know. Come on, there's no. Ranger Suarez is more of a veteran leader than anybody. Was Taijuan Walker pitching in the bullpen and starting in the playoffs last year? No, Ranger Suarez was. Whatever it takes for the team. I'm a man behind Ranger Suarez over Taijuan Walker.
The Mets didn't get far enough for him to be in the bullpen and starting.
The Mets, the Mets are going to Met all the time.
All the time.
So I really want to say, though, that, with the Andrew Painter thing, and you mentioned the six-man bullpen or rotation thing, I've said it before on this show. Andrew Painter, last year, 103 innings. It's the most he's ever thrown. You're not going to get more than 150 innings. You probably don't want to put him out there for more than 150 innings. So you kind of got to – I hate the slow approach to prospects, but at 19 years old, you don't want to overload them too quickly.
Right.
And if you're going to put him – they haven't said they're going to put him on an innings limit, but if you're going to put an innings limit per se on him, you want those innings available come September, October, November.
Exactly.
So there was – I forget who it was. I don't know if it was Steven Strasburg or not. But about 5-6 years ago, there was a young pitcher in baseball. They had him on an innings limit, and then they literally shut him down with 3 weeks left in September, and they missed the playoffs because they were going to other starters at that point. So you kind of definitely need to, if you're going to keep them limited, you've got to, be careful where you use those innings.
Yeah, exactly. And I think because I remember we didn't bring up Alec Boehm to start this season, so I think because they wanted to keep an extra year of availability on a contract. So, yeah, that was Strasburg. That sounded right. But they wanted to keep Boehm for an extra year on a contract. So I think that could also come into play. So innings and the contract, I really could also easily see him coming in later in the season. So it all depends on how he does in the in spring training.
Yeah, I mean, the six-man rotation thing kind of, I hate analytics and I hate the new approach towards baseball and stuff and sports in general. But I've actually suggested maybe a six-man rotation, which is crazy for somebody like me to even remotely suggest that. I think Bailey Falter earned the right to be in the starting rotation. I mean, his year last year was way better than people give him credit for. Everyone just remembers his struggles, his last outing in the playoffs, and everybody forgets all the good he did as a young kid with a lot of pressure, stepping into a role he wasn't really, expected to be in last year. So I kind of feel like you have that, cushion with Bailey Falter there for that 5 spot. And in my opinion, like if you're not going to go 6-man rotation, I keep thinking of this thing with, especially with Wheeler and with Aaron Nola, that you could be doing something where in June, you just give Aaron Nola 2 weeks off. Like a pre-scheduled, I know I hate to use the basketball term, load management. You kind of give him a 2-week break. You give Zach Wheeler in July 2 weeks off, whether he's hurt or not, kind of a load management. Then you ease him back into it. And having that depth, having Bailey Falter, having Andrew Painter basically ready, the other young guys, in the minor league system that are basically ready to go, it gives you that, cushion that barring an injury come September, we're not talking about Zach Wheeler again with, a tired arm. We're not worried about where Aaron Nola's velocity is come October. So I think that is something that, I keep thinking about is I hate to use the load management term, but a load management instead of a 6-man rotation for your pitching staff, which means you need 6 starters if you're going to do something like that.
Don't forget Holland Stubbs can also pitch. That is a thing. Holland Stubbs.
Yeah, well. Didn't they change that rule? I think that's what I have on my list of things to bring up is the rule changes. I think they changed the rules where the score has to be a certain distance apart for a position player to come in. I forgot. It's one of like the not talked about rules because outside of the Phillies, nobody else really brings their catcher in the pitch very often. I'm not really sure. Yes, I know. I know you love Nolan Ryan. And yes, he pitched like 600 innings a game, back when he was like 45 years old, but it's a different time. I'm trying to learn and adjust. I don't like analytics, but I'm trying to learn and adjust. So we all have got to learn to adjust to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some analytics I don't pay attention to, but there's with the 6-man rotation, it could be interesting, a load management kind of deal. because it is 162 games, and you add postseason and hopefully a World Series. So I think the annoying load management thing could come into play, and maybe 2 weeks off is a good start. It's a good test to see if it'll work.
Yeah, I like those, either the 6-man rotation or the load management idea better than I've heard some people talking about, where you have Falter and Painter piggyback game 5 of a 5-man rotation. Where they did that in the bullpen games in the playoffs, where Noah Syndergaard would go 2 to 3 innings, and then you'd bring in your next guy. I'm not as big of a fan of that as
I'm not either.
As just, kind of patchworking a 6-man rotation kind of idea together.
Yeah, because I mean, with a piggyback, you could really spend your bullpen in one game. And
Well,
there's a reason.
Let's bring that bullpen up. That's a great segue, because obviously we talked about Trey Turner and all the offensive changes of this team and the starting pitching and all, but the bullpen, I mean, Dave Dombrowski went out, and it seems like every single year we get excited because we keep improving our bullpen every year and something bad happens. But this year, I mean, this is quite the bullpen he's put together. Obviously, Alvarado and Dominguez got their extensions a week or two ago.
Finally.
You bring in Soto in a great trade. You've got Kimbrel. You've got Strahm. You've got so many guys in this bullpen now. You legit got 4 potential closers there.
Yeah.
So even if one of them falters, you still have plenty of guys that could step in to crunch time minutes. And we obviously saw Topper's way of managing the bullpen in high leverage situations and managing it that way. One, do you think he continues to do that over 162 games? And 2, just talk about some of these names. And I don't know about you, but I'm excited for this bullpen entering this season.
Over 162 games, I don't think he's going to be as crazy. I like how dangerous he got in the postseason, because when it's the postseason, you just throw everything in there, just do it. No, not too many games left, so just do it, give it your all, and it's got to work. But over 162 games, you're more cautious of, because the injuries and all this other annoying stuff that happens with the game. So I think over 162 games, we're going to see a lot less crazy stuff than we saw even when he first started here. And Jason's right; they were the unsung heroes of this.
We talked about it on this show every single day during that World Series about that bullpen. Now they had just 99-mile-an-hour arm after arm after arm able to come out. Yeah,
insane. And now we have the 2 hardest throwing left-handed relievers in the game. So but the most excited for me is I'm most excited for Kimbrel, because he did not have a great year with the White Sox, or was it the Cubs? White Sox? He was with both, whatever it was.
He was bad last year. We can agree on that.
Yeah, he was less than ideal, of course. He was not good at all. But I think when our organization gets a hold of him, and his ERA did drop down significantly from Chicago to LA. So I think it's going to be interesting, to say the least.
So if I'm just trying to read, I'm trying to read minds here. Are you saying that there's a chance that maybe Kimbrel becomes the closer on this team if he can get back to it? What he was used to capable, because obviously he's one of the greatest closers of all time at one point in his career. And I know Dominguez kind of is that closer, on this team, but also he's a guy you can use in Topper situation. I think Kimbrel is less likely to be successful today you're going to be in the 6th inning because we need an out. Tomorrow you're going to be in the 8th inning because we need an out. The next day you're going to be in the 9th inning. He's less likely to adjust to that type of a role than Dominguez, who's already done that. Could you see Kimbrel being kind of 1A, 1B on that closer situation, and then when he's available to close, you close with him, and Dominguez kind of is the other closer / high leverage guy?
I think that's interesting, because I really want somebody to be able to relieve a pitcher and go for a few innings and be shut down. And I really liked Sir Anthony when he was doing that. He can certainly close. Depending on how well Kimbrel does, I could totally see him being the closer. But I think Sir Anthony is kind of that guy for right now. I know Topper doesn't want to have a specific closer, which it kind of shows with having 4 or 5 different guys that can close any given night. So
Let's not forget about Connor Brogdon. I'm super high on Connor Brogdon. He pitched so well in the playoffs last year. You've got a guy as your 5th or 6th guy in your bullpen that can actually close games too. That's the difference between last year. Corey Knebel came in as the closer, struggled, but then you had nobody else to step in and fill that role. Now you've got a guy, if 4 guys falter, you got guy 5, 6, 7 that also pitched in the World Series last year that could step up into high leverage situations. That's how deep it is this year.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. For the first time in a very long time, we have both offense and both kinds of pitching. So I think, my closer by committee, that's what I think is going to happen. And I definitely think it shows because Topper has always said that he doesn't want a specific closer. And I think that's definitely showing with the moves they keep making.
Yeah. I just lost my whole train of thought there. All right, I'm reading these comments here as they're coming in, and I lost it there. All right, so expectations are high on this team. Before we get your thoughts on the final expectations of this team and where you think they're going to be this year, there's a lot of new rule changes, and we've already seen across baseball them affecting their spring training games. The players are getting used to them, but they're affecting the games. Like pitch clock, the shift banning, everything. Where are you on these rules, these changes to these rules? And, I mean, it kind of felt like the games were sped up, but it also, a lot of the rule changes where they're trying to speed the game up, other rule changes are going to obviously make the games go longer because let's speed up the pitcher, but let's create a better offensive game, which is going to cause longer games and more runs. Where are you with these rule changes?
So with the shift, I cannot stand the shift. I hate it, so I'm glad it's gone.
Oh, get off my show right now. Get off. You're never welcome back. I hate that they banned the shift.
I hate the shift. I can't stand it. The pickoff limit to 2 per batter is my favorite because I can't stand when I see pitchers continuously throwing to first base. And that also probably stems from me playing MLB The Show a lot because all the time I go to try to hit, but they always throw it to first base. So that also probably is a part of it, but that too. With the bases being bigger, they seem flatter, so it's probably good for players' legs, I guess. Less injuries, so that's probably good. But the pitch clock, I'm not a fan. I don't think I like it.
Well, first and foremost, let's get to the shift. And this is, to me, banning the shift, and this is going to be a little link to football here. Banning the shift is like banning the tush push. Because you can't stop it, let's just ban it. If you want to ban the shift, or you don't like the shift, learn how to hit the ball opposite field. Learn how to beat the shift. That's just me. That's old school me. I'm all for modernizing sports and the game. But you're saying I can't play defense because you can't beat my defense? That annoys me so much. I'm sorry.
I can totally see that comparison with the tush push.
I'm glad they're trying to ban the tush push because I think it gives me more of an argument in the anti-banning the shift. So, before that, I didn't have an example to really give. Now, because they're trying to ban the tush push, now I have an example. So now I kind of like this. now I'm going to push even harder for the anti-shift ban.
I just hate seeing 3 guys on one part of the infield. It's so frustrating.
I get it. Well, as a hitter, I don't know if you ever played, softball or baseball growing up.
Yeah, I did.
As a hitter, I played on this softball team years ago, and we had this guy. And in softball, you play 10 men in the field instead of 9, and you shift to these players all the time. We had this one guy on our team. He was this old timer. You could literally drop a dime in the outfield, and he could hit the baseball to that dime, no matter where. Because if you're going to shift him to the right, he's going to hit to the left every single time. He would find the soft spot, and he would do it. If this 55, 60-year-old man could do it, why can't major league players making $20 million a year figure out how to hit the ball opposite field? Sorry, that's just me.
That's fair.
I'm trying to grow in the analytics and new age baseball, but this is the one that I'm just never going to get behind.
I can definitely see the people that don't like it. It's going to be an
I get this is actually one of the fairest arguments against me from Mike here, compared to legal formation. I get it. but it's not a form. It's a formation, but it's a play. It's defense. There's no illegal formation on defense, only on offense.
That's true.
I got an answer for everything here. I got an answer. I've been preparing my shift arguments all year, so
I love it.
I love it. All right, I'll get back to the pitch clock. I think the pitch clock, in theory, is a good, and also the pickoff throw thing. In theory, they are good. I just think we're going to see a lot of struggles adjusting to that, and we've already seen it in spring training. And it will break my heart if we're in the World Series and all of a sudden a big out in the 8th or 9th inning happens because of the pitch clock.
Yeah, that I think there
the
needs
ending
to be
of a game in spring training the other day because of the pitch clock. That's what I don't want to see.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to see it affect the outcome of a game. I like it in a sense that the pitchers have to pitch faster because I can't stand when a pitcher takes forever to pitch.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like the game doesn't need to be shortened. I like the game as it is, but I think it should go away in the postseason, and I think it should, if you're gonna put it in the postseason, definitely make it longer than it is.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a late inning, like a 9th inning, bases loaded, 2 outs, take the pitch clock off. Everybody needs to be able to focus, and it just takes away from the focus and really could affect the outcome of the game other than actually taking too long.
Yeah. I mean, the games, like some parts of the game could be sped up. Like you don't need Ryan Howard after every single pitch, stepping out, adjusting his gloves, then spitting in them and doing whatever his routine. Bryce Harper in between every single pitch, having to touch the ground and draw that line in the dirt. Those kind of things, it will help eliminate those kind of things. But then again, come playoff time, I think that's perfect. It should just, especially in the World Series and in crunch times of playoff games, you can't have games ending.
No.
If you want, speed up the game through 1 through 7 innings. And then even in the regular season, eliminate, maybe the pitch clock in the 8th and 9th inning or something like that when games are on the line, because that's going to be so brutal if a team misses the playoffs by one game that got ended because of a pitch clock situation. Or they lose a playoff game when they're down 2-1 in a series. They lose a playoff game because of the pitch clock.
And you know it's going to happen, too. It always does.
It's going to happen. Absolutely. It's already happened in the few handful of games in baseball we've seen in spring training. Now, these guys will get used to it. I agree. I understand that. But I do want to see – I don't want to see it ending a game. Real quick, since we're on this topic, I wasn't going to talk about it. There's always the rumors of robot umpires. And I know they're testing them out in the minors and in a few spring training games throughout baseball this year. Yay or nay to robot pitch calling?
Absolutely.
Or robot calls and strikes?
Absolutely. I hate umpires. Like I played growing up, and I'm short, so I had a small strike zone. And whenever a pitcher would actually find my strike zone, be close to my strike zone, it was always a strike, although it was up to my eyes. Like I have never liked umpires, officials, refs, anything while playing. So I am all for robot umpires.
I'm a tall guy, but I was an awful hitter growing up. Like I wanted to be Mike Schmidt. I'm old. Mike Schmidt was my idol. I wanted to be Mike Schmidt, but I could field the ball. I could throw the ball. I could do everything defensively at above average level. But I was like a first grade hitter when I was in 10th grade. You know what I mean?
Me too.
So as a tall person, I just crouched down to shrink my strike zone.
Yep.
And I forget whether it was 8th, 9th, 10th grade, somewhere around there, an umpire called it was literally at my head.
Yep.
And he called a strike. And I'm like, yo, that was pretty high. He's like, well, stand up taller, and it would have been a strike. Because they were like literally, I had in one season, over the course of 10 games, I had 4 official at-bats because I was walking every single plate appearance. Because I knew I couldn't hit the ball. I would just get out. So I would just draw walks.
Yeah.
And so the umpire had seen it happen too many times. He's like, I'm just going to call every pitch a strike against you if you don't stand up. So I'm with you. I hate the umpires.
Yeah.
But again, that's going to take some getting used to if that does actually become part of baseball, letting the balls and strikes be called by a robot, or a computer.
Yeah, I don't have faith they're going to do it the right way, but.
Yeah, it's going to take a little while for that to happen. All right, so real quick here before we wrap this up and all, obviously the expectations are high for this team. You're being positive and high on this team as well. Do you think the Phillies can at least make another run towards the World Series this year?
Absolutely. my expectation is NLDS, at least, at the absolute least. You have Bryce Harper out for half the season, but you have other guys, high paid guys, very big name guys. So I could easily see them making the NLDS. Now, winning the division, that's a different story because the Mets are a regular season team and the Braves are just a thorn in our side. Playing these guys less over this season because we're playing everybody else, which I'm a fan of because I want to be able to see more teams play my team. I get it. It takes away from the NL World Series. I get it.
It also takes away from the rivalries, growing up, you hated the Braves and you hated the Mets and, there's nothing better
That's
than
never
going to a Mets
change.
Phillies game. It's not going to change, but it might lose its luster a little bit when you're playing them a few times less every year. 1 or 2 less trips to Philly to see the Phillies Mets, play is going to be frustrating to an extent.
Yeah, absolutely. And, sometimes you just got to take the good with the bad. And there's definitely a lot of issues with these rules. But with the Braves and the Mets just being in our division and still being good, I'm not going to say win the division because these guys all three of us are just really good. So saying win the division, no, but get to the wild card, take that series, whoever it is. It'll be a mismatch, hopefully, anyway. And head to the NLDS, and whatever happens after there, I'm cool with.
Yeah, I talk about timing in sports all the time. The Phillies are like all in right now at the worst time because you still have the Braves and the Mets that are at an elite level, if not borderline better than the Phillies. I know we made it to the World Series, but once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen to an extent. So the timing is just awful because, again, we all think so highly of this Phillies team. One injury at the wrong time, we're the third team again, making the wild card, but the third team again. So it's really, really tight. So I greatly I appreciate that you understand you're on the same page there. We didn't really get to talk about it really much. We're up against the clock here almost. Sixers do play the Heat tonight. They're on a 2-game losing streak. Is it crazy to say with 23 games left that this is a must-win game for the Sixers tonight?
Every game feels like a must-win for these guys. They're such a frustrating team. I mean,
they are.
They're so frustrating. I mean, you have all these expectations, and with Harden being around, it's win now. And with Doc Rivers as a coach, I don't know. I don't know how much. I don't know what we got.
I put out a tweet last night because I was bored sitting there taking care of Penelope. Shout out to my girl Penelope. She had a rough day yesterday having surgery, and she looks completely miserable sitting on the floor by my feet last night. I was watching TV, and I was sitting there, and I put out a tweet last night. And it was like, we went through this way too long with Brett Brown. And then I said before this season started, we should have moved on from Doc Rivers because we're going to wait one season too long. And look, I said it a few times lately. Doc Rivers is having his best season as a coach in Philly this year compared to his previous years. But it's still not good enough because he hasn't changed enough to adapt to the team he has. And I'm going to say if you don't win tonight, then you got Dallas Thursday on a back-to-back. Then you've got the Bucks on Saturday. There's a chance that we go on a 5-game losing streak here.
Yeah,
and the negative energy and momentum surrounding this team. Tonight is their favorite in Miami. They absolutely need to come out tonight with energy for a full 48 minutes because that's been the problem the last 2 games against the Grizzlies and Miami and Boston, 3 games, is that they have not had 48 minutes of energy. And unfortunately, that comes from Doc Rivers not getting these guys up and ready to play on a given night.
Absolutely. And I think it's no coincidence that every player that has left us the last couple of years is just going insane. I mean, Bassie, Isaiah Joe, Matisse is having a good season.
Well, not Ben Simmons.
Well, yeah. Glorified G Leaguer. But it's that's the one player that's
Here, hold on. So
there's an
it was funny.
outlier.
During my Carson Wentz positivity tweet the other day, I was having a conversation with somebody that commented on it, and I said, I have saved. Like a lot of people took their Wentz's, ripped the name off, and put A.J. Brown's name on it. I saved my Carson Wentz stuff because there will be a day in the future when he's retired. The day he retires, I'm going to rock my Carson Wentz gear again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, my Ben Simmons gear on the complete flip side,
That's
I
taped.
will never.
No.
I don't believe in, I don't burn jerseys. I don't
No.
do that kind of stuff. I use them
Mhm.
to sleep in, or to do yard work in if I have to. But I would never wear that out in public again.
No.
But I will never wear Ben Simmons stuff in public ever again. But Carson Wentz,
Absolutely.
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I went to his first game back in Philadelphia. He didn't play, but I went
Okay.
to with the Sixers. So I had my Ben Simmons shirt on, but it was taped. His name was taped and everything, and it sucks to see what's happened. But
It
with
does.
with Wentz, I mean, I have his Colts jersey. I have a Commanders Wentz shirt because I did that for
Wow.
McNabb
So
too.
you really went all out there on your Wentz support there.
I literally will support Wentz till my last breath. I really
love it.
appreciate what he did for this team. I really think he did a lot for us. We wouldn't have a Super Bowl without him.
Absolutely.
You have to appreciate what he's done outside of Philly. Whole other story. But what he did for our team, our city, you got to appreciate it.
I agree with you. I mean, we don't win the World Series or Super Bowl without him. I still say to this day, it's not his personality. It's not Jalen Hurts getting drafted. It was the concussion that ended his career in Philly and basically ended his success as a quarterback. Going into the 2020 season, I was brand new at this content creation and podcasting stuff, and I put it out there. I do my top 10 quarterbacks, not like Chris Sims. I don't do the clickbait crap, but I had Carson Wentz as the fourth best quarterback in the NFL going in 2020. That's how high I was on him.
I had him at 7, so that's pretty close.
I was so high on him.
Me too.
And that just fell to pieces. And I was one of those people that didn't. And I was a Jalen Hurts fan too. I was actually excited we drafted Jalen Hurts because I loved Jalen Hurts in college.
Mm-hmm.
So it was crazy the way that all went. Anyway, so we got Kylee here from the Bell Smashers podcast. Real quick before we wrap this up, tell everybody everywhere that they can find your shows on podcasting channels, everywhere else, and what else you got coming up. Do you have any other Phillies that you got coming on your show?
We've got some stuff going on. There's one not going to be announced just yet.
Oh,
but
I
know
breaking news on my show.
We don't have the graphic yet. If we had the graphic, I would definitely have said it. But I can tell you. I'll tell you privately. So Bell Smashers Pod on Twitter, Bell Smashers Podcast on Twitch, YouTube. You can get on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. Goes every Friday at 8 p.m. But we have Alex Carr coming on for a special, and that's releasing Monday. We have Connor from 97.5, and the next week we have somebody pretty cool coming on too. So
that's awesome. Tell out Carr, because Carr, I hit up Carr and he ignored my tweet, my DM. He ignored my DM. That was last year actually. So I'm a little disappointed in that. And Connor Thompson, he's great. I've had him on the show before in the past, so he's a great guy. But yeah, just keep up the great work, keep up the positivity. I greatly appreciate seeing the hard work in a positive way you guys are doing over there.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
All right, so everybody, again, if you can, make sure you hit the like, the subscribe button on the DSM Media YouTube page. Share out the show. And even if you're watching this show on replay, I go back, check every comment. So drop your comments in the comments section. Like and subscribe, like I said. Everybody have a great Wednesday. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to get back into football talk tomorrow. We got a lot of talk on the Eagles to get into. So everybody have a great day.
Go Birds.
Trending in the end. I'm sorry. Yeah, go Birds. You know what I mean? I know it's all Phillies and all Sixers right now. But, man, it's always going to be go Birds. So everybody have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m., Trending the AM on DSM Media.